All right, good morning. Good morning. Karibuni sana. Hope everyone is well. Welcome to another session of the Afriforex Daily Analysis. This beautiful 20th day of August, the year of our Lord 2024. Hope everyone is well. Karibuni sana. Good to see you here. Of course, lots of people that we've seen here before. Lots of familiar names, and also guys we've met at one point in time or another, and also guys we've not met here before. But Karibuni sana. Hope everyone is well from whatever it is that you're joining us from. Hope you had a good day yesterday on the charts and in everything else that you were doing. But we're really happy that you could join us. I know that you're busy people, like I always say, but you do take the time to be here with us each and every morning, and we are much appreciative of that. So for the sake of guys who are new here, John is my name. I'm a trader with Afriforex. Afriforex is a trading unit. So like I always say, it's not a one-man show. So we also do have Mitch. He is working in the back office. So in case you do have any questions, of course, Forex related, feel free to ask them, both on the Q&A section and on the chat box. That goes out to the guys who are here on Zoom. For the guys who are watching us on YouTube, if you want to join us, there should be a link in the video description that should guide you here. So feel free to join us here and interact with us. So feel free to ask your questions. Of course, we do prefer that you do ask them in the Q&A section so that I will also end up having a look at them towards the end of this session. But of course, Mitch is also here to give you much assistance on that front. So that's pretty much it in terms of the housekeeping. So I think we can get started. So we'll start off by looking at the watch list like we always do. And you can see the watch list right there, the 20th of August. It's more or less copy-paste from what we had yesterday. Remember yesterday, there weren't that many fundamentals that were there, and the ones that came out didn't really end up changing much in terms of the biases. And also today morning, we did have one news event that just came out for the euro right about now, but there wasn't much of a change, exactly what was expected, and also exactly what was there previously. So there isn't much change on that front. So that means that the watch list is going to be the same. However, before we move away from that, by the way, we do have some CPI news events that are going to be coming up at around 12. So should possibly end up expecting some fireworks, maybe on the euros, and also some CPIs that are going to be coming out for the card as well later on at about 3:30 or thereabout. So possibly you could find some moves on the cards and also on the euros, but we'll keep you updated. In case anything does end up shifting or changing, then we'll definitely let you know. So just make sure that you're in the Telegram channel. So that being the case, since we're going to be doing the reviews of the currency pairs as we're looking at what we should possibly end up expecting, I guess we can end up looking at some screenshots that we did end up getting. So we'll start off with these ones from Alan. Alan, I hope you're here, or hopefully you do end up watching this later on. I know that you had asked yesterday about getting feedback on your trades. We did have a look at them. And of course, we're really happy that you do send this in to us so that at least we can give you the much needed advice that you need. So this is on the Swiss franc against the Japanese yen. So you did get a sell, or you did take a sell somewhere down within this region here. And you can see that your stop loss was all the way high up within that region there. Now, for this one, remember when it comes to trading, there's a thing that we always talk about, sell with sellers, buy with buyers. And of course, due to the fact that the market came down this aggressive, of course, lots of people were definitely looking to see whether they could get sells. And I know that your mind just goes into a mode whereby, you're busy trying to chase a trade because you missed out on the entries earlier and you think that the market could go lower. But like we always point out, it's always best to wait and see if you can actually end up getting some sort of a pullback. Because, when it comes to sells, you definitely want to be selling high. For buys, you want to be buying low. And also, going in line with that, you always want to make sure that you're getting your selling opportunities at least within areas of resistance and you're buying opportunities within areas of support. So for this particular sell right here that you did end up getting, to some extent, this could have been a buyer's region. And that's the reason why you can't see that the market did actually end up pulling back up. And I remember that yesterday, even when you did end up asking for advice, I think it was on the euro against the Japanese yen, I did point out that it was better to actually wait, or even if you were in that trade, it was better to scratch. Because considering the fact that the market did actually end up coming down like it did on this one, there's definitely a level that was broken somewhere. And, it's always best to wait and see if you could get the market coming back in within that region for some sort of a retest. So at least if you do end up getting the sells there, at least you will be getting the sells and you will be trading against the buyers who are coming up against you. And ideally, those are the guys that you're going to be doing business with. So it's always best to actually end up waiting for the pullbacks. When you end up getting such type of trades, it also ends up being tricky in terms of where you put your stop loss. And you can see that your stop loss is quite far, all the way within that region there. And, it now ends up being a bit difficult to end up getting some proper risk to reward on such type of trades. Because if this is the distance that you're looking at in terms of stop loss, then you need the market to possibly end up going twice that distance, at least to the downside, for you to actually end up getting some good risk to reward. So you end up putting yourself in a tricky situation. So make sure that you always do wait for the pullbacks and at least try as much as possible. I mean, even if your timing is not really that great, just make sure that you do try as much as possible to get those sells within areas of resistance and buys within areas of support. If you end up doing that, at least it will be much better for you. But of course, like we always say, we are here to give mentorship and advice. So I mean, when we end up getting such type of screenshots, that's why we are here. So guys, feel free to send in your trades, even if they are not that great. Make sure that you do end up using us as some sort of a resource. This is like some sort of a free clinic that we actually do end up giving the community. So I see that this is the Canadian dollar against the Japanese yen. Similar situation, of course, when the market came down, some sort of FOMO, kicks in. You want to get the sells as the market is moving down. But like I pointed out, it's always best to wait for the pullback. And you see where your stop loss is. Maybe that's where the market could possibly have been coming back until to possibly end up giving a sell. But of course, I know yesterday the yen pairs were really on the pullback. I know in the morning during the Asian session, they were really moving. But later on, unfortunately, we couldn't get the sellers coming in. But let's see if that ends up happening today. But of course, for this one, like we pointed out, just make sure that you don't end up chasing. When you do, unfortunately, you don't really end up making any money. So I hope that advice sits well with you, Alan. And of course, we're looking forward to seeing more of your progress in the coming screenshots and in the coming days. So this is a screenshot from Bravin. So I see Bravin got some buying opportunities on silver. I can see you got one buy within here. There was one that was missed within this region right here, close shave. But of course, at least you did end up getting that one. Stop loss seems like it's just beneath this buyer who was pushing the market to the upside, which is good. Don't know where you are targeting. But of course, I know that Bravin, you're definitely good at trading. So I'm not too worried about that. Definitely know that you know what you are up to on that one. So shout out to you for that. And also we did get some screenshots from Peter. Peter, if you're here, shout out to you. This is the Canadian dollar against the Japanese yen. You got a buying opportunity on this one. I can see that the market side move in your favor. Stop loss above your point of entry and your take profit somewhere within this region right here, which is okay. This one was a lucky, more or less like you got out of this one quite lucky, because where you actually ended up getting the buy within this region, you can see that the buyers are somewhere within this area right here, and the sellers first ended up going against you. If you had gotten the buy maybe somewhere within this region, or when the market broke to the upside, if you wanted to look for a proper buy, would have been somewhere within this area, more or less the same price, but at a different time, maybe somewhere within this area after the breach to the upside and the hold. So this one was a bit tricky, but you should thank God you actually made it out alive on that one. So shout out to you, Peter. And of course, once the market started to move in your favor, at least you did end up doing some proper money management. And also this one, this is also the Australian dollar against the Japanese yen. So I can see that you got a buy within here. But of course, it's always best to wait for the market to come back in. So where you got the buy, same price, but had you gotten it somewhere within here, after you get the market breaking to the upside, then when it comes back in, to give some sort of a retest, if you end up getting that trade somewhere within here, would have been much, much better. But at least once the market started to move in your favor, stop loss above your point of entry, which is okay. And I can see that you're targeting somewhere within there. But your stop loss could have also been somewhere within here, just hiding behind that buyer who was pushing up. But of course, good attempt there. So shout out to you for that, Peter. And of course, looking forward to more of your trading and more of your improvement as we continue to celebrate your wins, in the coming days. So shout out to you for that. So last but not least, we did get a screenshot from Mark Ngori, if you're here. Shout out to you as well. So this is on the Dow Jones. So I can see you got a buy on this one. Stop loss above your point of entry, just hiding behind those buyers who are pushing up somewhere within here. I don't know where you're targeting, but of course, this was a really good trade. How you got the buy here, maybe reading it on a smaller time frame, because this is the 30-minute. maybe on a smaller time frame, more detail. If you got it on the pullback, especially when the market came back in within there, then that was really, really good. So shout out to you for that, Mark Ingori, and of course, everyone else who did end up sending in a screenshot or two yesterday. So that's pretty much it in terms of screenshots. Remember, guys, if you do get any trades, whether good or bad, we're not here to judge. We're just here to celebrate and also help you. Feel free to send them in to us. Our contact details should be there on the chat box. You can send them in to us via WhatsApp. And us guys will be more than happy to see what you guys are up to. And also feel free to use that number to call us in case of anything. You know, if you're in on some trades and you're really wondering what to do, feel free to also use that number as an SOS. We'll see how best we can end up helping you. So the number is in the chat box. For the guys watching us on YouTube, the number should be somewhere maybe on one of the links that we do have all our resources. You should find it there. But also if you do go to our website, www.afriforex.com, you should be able to find our number there. So shifting gears into matters today. So for the guys who just came in a bit late, it's not a mistake. The watch list is exactly the same as yesterday. So we will be mixing and matching up the sells versus the buys. So we'll start off with the Swiss franc pairs, mix and match them up with everything on the buy side, move on to the USD pairs, the Euro pairs, the CAD pairs, then we'll finish off with the indices and the commodities. So the first one off the line, this is the Australian dollar against the Swiss franc. So for this one yesterday, trying to see whether we could get some buying opportunities. And you can see the three regions right there that I have pointed out and some illustrations of what to expect. In the morning when I'm looking at the charts, price was somewhere within this region here. And the sellers were coming in quite hot and quite fast. And we're expecting maybe if they did come back in within here, I was timing a buy somewhere down within that region there. But I also did point out that if the market did actually end up pushing back into the upside, I think maybe price was just coming back in to look for some prices within here. Then if we did get a hold within here, then we could have looked for the buying opportunities. And you can see that this one did end up starting to move to the upside, although just in between the times, not really within the stipulated times that we always talk about. But you can see that the market came back in, held within here. I was actually expecting maybe to get some sort of a pullback within here, maybe at around 3 to get the buy. But you can see that the buyers just continue to push the market to the upside. And of course, the market did end up tapping that region right there. And you can see that the sellers are retaliating off that region at the top right there. So for this one, for today, the levels are the same. So you can see that the market has not really gone far and beyond the regions that I had pointed out yesterday. So the plan is still more or less the same. Let's see what happens. If the sellers can actually push the market back in within this region here, you could possibly find some really good buying opportunities, could be hiding somewhere within here. And of course, when the market does go to the upside, make sure that you do manage your trade within this region at the top right there. But also remember this region at the bottom right here. I mean, if this price is not good enough for the buyer, then they need a much better price. They'll need, you know, if they do need more of a discount, then at least we will be waiting to see whether we can get the price coming back in within this region here. So hopefully you can take note of those three areas, but ideally the plan is more or less the same as yesterday. There is no change to that. So the next one is the Great British Pound against the Swiss franc. So for this one yesterday, we were watching out for buyers. You can see the three areas right there that I had pointed out. In the morning, when we're looking at the charts, price was somewhere within here. So at around 9, 10, you can see that price was somewhere within here. The buyers did actually end up showing up. I was actually expecting maybe to get some sort of a pullback coming in within this region to get a proper buy. But you can see that the market really held within this region, and you can see some attempts to actually end up, you know, taking out this region to the upside. Can see that the market tapped there more or less twice, but the sellers were giving issues, and it's like the buyers really ran out of steam. So the market has just been hovering within here. Can see some alerts that have been set there, you know, just waiting to see what does end up happening within these two regions right here. But the levels are more or less the same. Let's see if hopefully we can get the buyers really showing up today, because yesterday it's like they showed up, then it's like they completely ran out of steam, you know, somewhere within this region, right? And you can see that the market did end up getting into some sort of a range within there, which has been broken to the downside, you know, during the Asian session. So we'll be waiting to see whether they can end up regrouping somewhere within this region right here. And hopefully if that does end up happening, then hopefully we could get some, you know, some good buying opportunities off this area. But you'll have to manage your trade at the top, because if you look at the bigger structure of what's going on here, the market is definitely in a range. So if we're going to be getting the buys at the bottom of the range, then that means that you need to make sure that you do some really good money management, you know, at the top of the range. I mean, if the market does break above that region to the upside and continues to move up further, then you should count that as some sort of a bonus. But ideally, what is guaranteed is what is in between this structure right here. So just make sure that you do manage your trade. And of course, remember, if the market breaks this range to the downside and actually holds below this region and we can't go back to the upside of this area right here, then you could find that maybe the market might be looking for a better price. And that last region that, we're going to be watching out to see whether we can get the buying opportunities will be that red SNR at the bottom right there. So the next one, this is the New Zealand dollar against the Swiss franc. So for this one, yesterday we're trying to see whether we could get some buying opportunities. You can see the three regions right there that I had pointed out. So in the morning when we're looking at the charts, price was somewhere within this area right here. So you can see at around 9, 10, let's see, price was somewhere within this region right here. So within a region of some buyers, which was good. You can see that the buyers did react. The sellers attempted to take out these buyers within here, but the buyers really maintained their ground. And you can see this is the reason why we keep on pointing out buy with buyers, sell with sellers. And I hope that, guys are learning. And of course, even, like for Alan, like we're talking about in terms of looking for the buys and the sells, even if your timing is not really that great, just make sure that at least if you do get your buys, within regions of buyers and your sells within regions of sellers, it increases the probability, of your trades working out because you're not off location. It's not like you're trying to score some sort of an offside goal. You're in the camp of the opposite party. Ideally, that goal is not really going to count and it's going to be hard to score. So it's the same thing even when it comes into trading. Just make sure that at least you're with your people. At least that will make sure that your trading ends up being a bit much better, even if your timing is not really that great. So you can see like right now, anyone who's looking for buys now, might not really be the best thing to do. In as much as, yes, you could find that buy might end up working out. But, trading is all about statistics. If you repeat that a number of times, maybe it might work out this time around. You do that maybe over 10, 15, 20 times, you'll find out that most times it might actually not end up working in your favor. So for this one, since we're looking for buys, the best thing to do is to actually wait for the market to break to the upside. When this resistance turns into support, when the market comes back in on the pullback, at least at that point in time, you looking at buys, you're actually looking at buys at an area of support. So just make sure that you have that in mind. So right now, this is not a good time to look for the buys. Let's give these sellers the benefit of doubt. You could find that maybe during the London session, the market could be on the pullback phase. And it's not uncommon. You could find the market back in here, maybe at around 3, 4:30, and you could find a really good buying opportunity. I mean, if the buyers can't push above this area to the upside. So make sure that you do wait for that. And also remember the last region where we will be waiting to see whether we can get some buying opportunities will be down within that region right there. So just make sure that you do watch out for that. So last but not least, for the CHF pairs, we do have the Swiss franc against the Japanese yen. So for this one, yesterday, we're trying to see whether we could get some selling opportunities. You can see the three regions that I had pointed out. In the morning, when we're looking at the charts, price was somewhat down within this area right here. And you can see that the sellers had really come down quite aggressive. This was during the Asian session. And of course, we're waiting for the pullbacks to come in, back within this region here. Of course, waiting to see whether we could get some sort of a sign, of the big sellers showing up. Unfortunately, we couldn't get the sellers showing up within this area. And neither could we really get the sellers showing up within this area right here. So you can see that the buyers pushed up, but ideally there were no sellers to be seen. Remember, we always need to see an aggressive seller, push the market to the downside. Not these small blips that you're seeing here. We can't count that as some sort of a seller. I mean, even if you do end up taking your sell within this region, because we're within a seller's region, which is okay. But the fact that the sellers are not interested, you can see that the market did actually continue pushing to the upside. There was some sort of a small reaction within this area right here, but it seems that the buyers are still pushing the market to the upside. So for this one, we've adjusted the levels. We're still watching out for sells. Let's see what happens within this area right here. And to some extent, it seems like the yen, the big boys are playing some sort of games because you can't see that yesterday they showed up, then after that they completely disappeared, nowhere to be seen. So let's see if they're going to show up today. So for this one, this is the area that we're going to be watching out for. So what I will be expecting is if we can at least get the sellers pushing the market to the downside aggressively, not in a very weak manner, aggressively, then hopefully after that, we can get the market possibly coming back in, within this region and actually holds to the downside. Maybe even some attempts to break to the upside again, but, if they end up being unsuccessful, at that point in time, if you do end up taking your sells, you could actually end up taking some sales. You could actually end up targeting all the way, back down within this region, or maybe even back down within this area right here. But just make sure that you do end up managing your trade within here. So for this one, it's just a waiting game. Possibly we'll end up setting an alert somewhere within that region there. But remember, like we always point out, there's always some really good correlation that happens across the board, especially on the yen pairs. So if you end up seeing something on one, have a look at the others. You could possibly end up getting a handful of pips, but also it will give you that comfort and ease of mind to know that it's not only the Swiss franc against the Japanese yen that, if let's say the euro against the Japanese yen and the USD against the Japanese yen is also on the move, then that will be good, because that will give you the much needed confidence that you need to know that the big boys are back in terms of pushing the yen. Then at least you know that now this one, there's a higher probability and a possibility of it working out. All right. Hope everyone can hear me. Don't know what happened. I think maybe my net buffered there for a bit, but let's see if we can get on with the show. Hope guys can hear me. If you can, maybe you can let me know in the chat box. All right. So I'm seeing guys are saying yes, we can. Trading view seems to be hanging just a bit. Just 1 second. So anyway, technology doesn't end up falling apart. At least that's how you end up knowing these things are not recorded. So you see Alan there, you're saying, yes, you can. All right, good stuff. So I think we can get on. Apologies for that. So the next one we're going to look at was the Australian dollar against the US dollar. So for this one, yesterday we were trying to see whether we could get some buying opportunities. You can see the three regions right there that I had pointed out. And in the morning, price was somewhere within this region right here. We did need to see the market break to the upside. It did break, hold above this region. And you can see that the market did actually continue pushing to the upside. Today, these are the levels that we're going to be watching out for to see whether we can get some buying opportunities. So hopefully you can end up taking note of these three regions right here. So right now the market is just approaching the conservative area. So we'll just have to end up waiting to see what does end up happening. Either the market could actually end up reacting off here and come back in within this area right here, but don't end up chasing the buys right now, especially when the market is moving to the upside, coming in within this area. Because even if you do hit the buys here, your stop loss will still have to be here, and the problem area still does end up remaining. So you're better off either waiting for the market to break above this region to the upside. If that happens, then you could look for the buys within this region right here on the pullback. If not, then let's wait and see if we could get the market pulling back in within this region here or somewhere within this area right here. So hopefully you have taken note of that. So the next one, this is the Great British Pound against the US dollar. So for this one, Yesterday, we're trying to see whether we could get some buys. You can see the three regions right there that I had pointed out. In the morning, price was somewhere within here. So we wanted to either see the market break and hold above here for us to look for the buys, or if the market was going to come back in, we wanted to see the pullback come in within this region right here. But unfortunately, we couldn't get that pullback coming in within there. So almost something similar with the Australian dollar against the US dollar. The only thing is that the USD was quite weak. And that's the reason why you can't see that the pullback just couldn't come in as, as deep as we wanted to see. And also as well on the Australian dollar against the US dollar, we couldn't get that proper pullback coming in. So for this one, you can see that the buyers have woken up and they're already starting to push the market to the upside. Don't look for the buying opportunities right now. Wait and see if you can't get the market breaking above this region to the upside. If we end up getting that, then at least on the pullback, let's see if we can get that, buy somewhere within this region to continue moving up higher. But let's also give these sellers the benefit of doubt. I mean, the buyers have come up aggressively, and you can see that they've been held hostage within here. So, I mean, even if the market doesn't come back in within this region, we have this area right here that we can also watch out for, to try and see whether we could get some buying opportunities there. So just make sure that you also do watch out for that. Remember the red SNR at the bottom in case the market does come back in all the way to within that region there, then possibly we could try and see whether we could get some buying opportunities there. So moving on into the next one, this is the New Zealand dollar against the US dollar. So for this one yesterday, we're trying to also see whether we could have gotten some buys. And you can see the three regions that I had pointed out. And in the morning, yesterday, when we were looking at the charts, price was somewhere within this area right here. And I did point out, don't look for some buying opportunities when we're so close within a seller's region. You can see that the sellers did react. The market came down. It's just a matter of being a bit patient. Consider the market came back in within this region. Then you can see that the market did actually end up turning around, within this area at 3 or there about 4:30. You can see that the market came back in within this region of support before continuing to push to the upside. So for this one, for today, these are the three areas that we're going to be watching out for. So hopefully you can end up taking note of them. So we do have the market just attempting to break above that region to the upside. So let's see if we can end up getting the buyers, sustaining the price, above this region. The fact that the market is breaking to the upside, but remember, don't end up getting into some sort of breakout trades, make sure that you're a bit patient. Once the market breaks to the upside, always wait and see whether you can get the market on the retest, because you could easily find the market coming back into the downside. And if that does end up happening, then you could find that, especially if the market holds within here, you could find it coming back in within this area right here. And you could find that the proper buys might actually end up taking off from within this area. So let's be a bit patient, but it's good to see that the buyers are already in the game. It's also something that we're seeing. I mean, looking at the rest of the USDs, you've seen that, the buyers are already coming in. So there's some sort of correlation that's already starting to happen on those ones. So let's wait and see what ends up happening on that front. So last but not least, for the USDs, we have the US dollar against the Japanese yen. So for this one yesterday, trying to see whether we could get some sells. You can see the sellers came down aggressively during the Asian session. The market pulled back in within here. We couldn't get any sellers showing up per se. Consider the market really fought within this region right here before continuing to move to the upside during the Asian session. So for today, these are the three areas that we'll be watching out for. Unfortunately, yesterday we couldn't get some proper selling opportunities on the yens. Let's see if today, maybe if the sellers are actually going to show up. So these are the three regions that we're going to be watching out for. So right now, the game plan is if the market does end up coming back into the downside of this area, because you don't really want to be hitting sells, especially when the market is just holding, above this region right here. We could get the market being pushed back into the downside of this area right here, then you could find that some proper sales could be happening here. And at least at that point in time, if you look for the sales within there, even if you end up having your stops within there, if you're some sort of a cowboy and you want to have them within here and you can read the smaller scale of things, especially in the smaller time frame, then you could end up looking for some sales within there and you could come down with the market, all the way down to within this region. But also let's wait and see what happens. I mean, if this price is not good enough, then at least the last area we will be watching out for is somewhere within this region. So we've just slightly moved the levels up higher. These ones are based on the 15, but of course, based on the 1 hour seller, he's sitting somewhere within that area. And I think that should technically be the last area that we should be watching out, to see whether we can get our last selling opportunities. So that's pretty much it in terms of the USDs. So we're going to move on to the euros, mix and match them up with everything on the buy side. So we'll start off with the euro against the Australian dollar. So for this one yesterday, the bias was to try and see whether we could get sells. Similar situation with today. So you can see the three areas that I had pointed out in the morning. When we're looking at the charts, price was somewhere within this region, right? You had pointed out that maybe we wanted to see maybe the sellers slow down within here, but you can see that the buyers really ended up turning around, within this area right here, quite fast, and they were taken out. Wanted to see that last push coming up, maybe to get the sales higher up, but it's like the euros just didn't have much strength, and you can see that the market continued to move to the downside. And at 3, you can see that the market had already broken to the downside, held within here. You can't see from 3 moving into 430. Price was within that area, and you can see some selling opportunities within this area right here started to happen. And you can see that moving into today, we're in some sort of a range, that's starting to happen within this region right here. So for this one, for today, the game plan is still to look for sells. So these are the 3 areas that we're going to be watching out for. Let's see if we can get some decent and some clear selling opportunities on this one today. Yesterday, the sales were a bit all over the place, in as much as the market did continue moving to the downside, but it was a bit tricky, in terms of getting the selling opportunities. So let's see what happens on this one. Don't chase the sales. In as much as you're seeing the red bars coming down, but you're already approaching a region where we should be possibly, be getting ready to manage our trades. So let's wait and see. If we can't get the market either bouncing off this region to the upside, and we could get the market coming back in within here. If that doesn't happen and we can't get the sales there, then at least the best thing is to actually wait and see if we can't get a breach of this region to the downside. If we end up getting that, and maybe end up getting a repeat of this, because you can see that the market broke to the downside, it's retested off this area a number of times. And I mean, if you end up looking for sales within here, then you're not off location. So if you can get maybe a repeat of that within this region, if we can't get this price, then ideally the good sales could also be hiding somewhere within that area. But also remember the red SNR at the top. There's a possibility price can get there. We do have Euro CPIs that are going to be happening at 12. So you could easily find that the market could also end up maybe even spiking, all the way till that area at the top. So also make sure that you're ready for that in case that does end up happening. So moving on into the next one, this is the euro against the Great British Pound. So for this one yesterday, we're watching out for sales. You can see the 3 areas that I had pointed out in the morning. Price was somewhere within this region right here. So you can see that at around 9:10, price was somewhere within this area. Of course, I pointed out, don't really look for the sales, especially if the market comes in too low within that region there. You can see that the buyers did end up reacting. The sellers didn't really do much of this area right here. And of course, the major area that we're watching out for was this region right here. And you can see that during the Asian session today, the market has gone to the upside. And if you look at what's happening right now, this is definitely a sign of the big boy sellers. When we talk about wait for the big boys to come back in, maybe some guys normally wonder, what do the big boys look like? On the charts, it should be those big moves. So you can see that the buyers have gone up. And if you look at how the sellers have come in, there's no doubt that these are definitely the big boys. If you look at the size of those candles, coming in, you can definitely tell that those are the big boys coming in. So what we will be waiting for, and the best thing to do is, let's wait and see if we can actually end up getting the market coming back in within here. Because if you do jump in on yourselves right now, that's a bit premature. What you could find is maybe the market might actually even end up just bouncing off this region right here, and you could find the market coming back into the upside quite aggressively. And if that happens and the market holds within here, you could find that maybe the market could do something like that, and you could easily end up getting stopped out. So the best thing to do is to actually wait and see if we can get the market coming back in, let's say within this region here for some sort of a retest. And let's say the market does actually end up holding within here. If you end up getting that sell, it might actually end up being much, much better. So I will be waiting to see what happens here. Okay, I'll set an alert there. Let's see if we can get the market coming back in within there. And also the good thing about waiting for the pullback, to come back in within there, it also makes sure that your risk to reward also ends up fitting in quite well, which means that you'll have more room to play with to the downside, and also your stop loss. Because even if you end up hitting yourselves somewhere down within here, your stops are not really safe unless they're maybe somewhere higher up, within this region right here. So you see, if the market can actually end up going up, you end up squeezing, that stop loss. So your risk to reward ends up becoming much better. And of course, for those of us who are cowboys, just like I am, definitely when the market comes in within here, just reading the mini story of things to even get the stop loss even as tighter as possible to make sure that the risk to reward really ends up making even way more sense. So hopefully you've taken note of that. Let's see what happens, but at least good to see that the big boys are in on that one. So the next one, the euro against the New Zealand dollar. For this one, yesterday, we're trying to see whether we could have gotten some sells. Can't see the three regions that I had pointed out. In the morning, when we're looking at the charts, price was somewhere within this region here. So at around 9:10, wanted to see price come back in within this area. It did end up tapping within that region. Can't see an attempt to go to the upside. Couldn't. Price came back in, held within there. And you can't see that the journey to come to the downside did actually end up starting at that point in time, moving into today, during the Asian session. So for this one, for today, we will be watching out for sells within these three areas right here. So hopefully you can end up taking note of them. Right now, you can see that the market has just broken this region to the downside. But like I've pointed out before many times, let's wait and see if we can get either the market coming back in within here. You could find maybe some attempts to break to the upside. If those ones end up coming in and they are successful, it's even better for us. It should give you more confirmation that the sellers are still in the game and they could push the market to the downside. Of course, if the market does end up getting pushed back up to the upside and actually holds above here, then what you could find is either the market could come back in within here, but there's also a minor level within this area right here that I can also end up pointing out. You can see that the sellers who are pushing and I've taken out this region right here, actually sitting somewhere within this area. So you could find that maybe even if the market comes shy of this area, then we will also be waiting to see what happens, maybe somewhere within this region right here. So watch out for that. But remember also the region at the top, like I pointed out, we have the CPIs for Euro today. So, you never really know what could happen. Could easily find the market shooting all the way till that area at the top before it comes down. So also be ready for that. So last but not least, on the euro pairs, we do have the euro against the Japanese yen. So for this one, yesterday, we're watching out for sells. Can't see the three areas right there that I had pointed out in the morning, like we've seen with the rest of the yens. The big boys had really pushed the market to the downside. We were waiting to see what was going to happen on the pullbacks. And you can see that the sellers didn't really end up doing anything within this region right here. So we couldn't look for sells there. Can't see that the market came up. There was really nothing here. Today, it seemed early in the morning like they had showed up, but you can't see that the buyers have still pushed the market to the upside. And these sort of scenarios can end up happening on the charts. And that's the reason why being patient is very important. Remember, like I think it was on the euro against the Great British Pound, where I was pointing out that in as much as the sellers have started to show up, it's always important to wait and see what happens on that next pullback. Because you can imagine guys who are already jumping in on sells or who are already jumping in on sells when the market was coming down and they were not patient to see what was going to happen next after that, then you can definitely see that they are possibly getting stopped out right now. So it's very important, to always wait for that last pullback to come in so that at least you can gauge the momentum of what's going on. So for this one, we've adjusted the levels a bit higher. Yesterday, based on the 15, this was the story, but today the market has come back in all the way till the 1 hour seller. So we've just adjusted those levels just slightly higher. Let's see what happens. If these buyers can end up getting shut down, within this area right here, then at least we could try and see whether we could get some selling opportunities, within this region right here. Right now, the buyer who's pushing up is somewhere within here. Let's see if they can actually end up giving up the ball. We're within more or less a region where we do have sellers. If we can end up getting that, then hopefully you could end up getting some good selling opportunities, somewhere within this region right here. Also watching out for the times. You could find that maybe that whole rollover phase might actually end up taking maybe the whole of the London session, before. So let's just be patient and wait and see what does end up happening. So I hope that is clear for guys. So that's pretty much it in terms of the euro pairs. So right now we're going to move on to the next currency pairs, which are going to be the Canadian dollar pairs, which are going to be the last set of currency pairs that we're going to be watching out for. So we'll mix and match them up with everything on the buy. So we'll start off with the Australian dollar against the Canadian dollar. So for this one, yesterday we're trying to see whether we could have gotten some buying opportunities. So you can see the three regions right there that I had pointed out. So in the morning when I'm looking at the charts, price was somewhere within this region right here. And you can see that around 9:10, price was within some sort of a seller's region. pointed out that we wanted to see the market break to the upside and hold above this region for us to look for the buys. And you can see that the market broke to the upside. Unfortunately, couldn't come back in all the way to within this region right here, but you can see that after that, the market did continue pushing to the upside. Not the clearest of opportunities, maybe unless if you're reading that on a smaller time frame to really see what was going on there. But let's see if today we can end up getting some much more clear opportunities on this one. So let's watch out for these three regions right here. Right now, the market seems like it's just attempting to lift off this area to the upside. So don't really end up chasing. I know that you're seeing some green bars right there going up, but it's always best to wait and see. You never know whether these sellers right here could actually end up reacting to the downside. If they do, you could find the market still coming back in within this region right here. So we'll be waiting for that. And of course, if you end up chasing the buys right now, you're not really going to get some really good risk to reward, because I mean, you're so close within this region right here where you could find the sellers reacting off from. So you're possibly better off either waiting for the market to break above this region to the upside. If that does end up happening, then maybe you could look for some buying opportunities on the other side of this region right here. But right now, within this area, sellers could react, could find the market coming back in within this region right here. So just be a bit patient on that one, but also remember the red SNR at the bottom. You could find the market coming back in within that area there. Also remember there's some CPIs that are going to be happening for the Canadian dollar at around 330. Or thereabouts. So you could also end up finding, some fireworks happening on the Canadian dollar pairs, and you could find, some wicks or something of the sort happening. So just make sure that you're fully well aware of that. So the next one, this is the Great British Pound against the Canadian dollar. So for this one yesterday, we're trying to see whether we could get buys. The plan is more or less the same as today. Yesterday in the morning, price was somewhere within this region here. So you can see that around 910, pointed out, don't really end up looking for the buys when the price is so close within that region. The sellers did end up pushing the market to the downside. You just needed to be patient. And you can see that at exactly 430, price was back in within this area right here. We did get that buy. You can see how fast that buy worked. But you did need to manage your trade, within that region there. So this one is in some sort of a range. So the levels are the same as what we did end up having yesterday. There isn't much of a change. So hopefully you can end up taking note of those three regions right there. Let's see what happens. You can see that the bars have already started to push the market to the upside. So, which is good, some sort of a good sign to tell us that the buyers and the big boy buyers are there. Let's see what happens off this area right here, because it seems that sellers have also reacted off here a number of times. If they can end up pushing the market maybe slightly back in, maybe as close as possible within here, we could look for the buys there. It's at the bottom of the range. In terms of location, that is a good area in terms of looking for the buys. If you can get the market lifting to the upside, then just make sure that you're also ready to manage your trade within that region there. But there's also a minor SNR that I can end up pointing out somewhere within here. So just make sure that you also watch out for that area. Even if this is the major area, there's also a minor area somewhere within here. If you do get, the market coming in there and you get some sort of signs of resistance, of the opposite party, then ideally it's not a bad idea to also end up managing your trade within that region. So also watch out for the region at the bottom. The market does end up coming back in within that area, then hopefully we'll try and see whether we can get some buying opportunities there. So moving on into the next one, this is the New Zealand dollar against the Canadian dollar. So for this one, yesterday, the buyers was to try and see whether we could get some buying opportunities. You can see the three regions right there that I had pointed out. So in the morning, when we're looking at the charts, price was somewhere within this region here. So at around 910, price was there. I pointed out that we were expecting price to come back in within this region right here. We did end up getting a hold. We could actually end up looking for a buying opportunity within this area right here to continue moving to the upside. So this was a trade that I did actually end up taking. Unfortunately, I couldn't finish this trade as well as I had planned it out. So when the market did end up coming back in within this region right here, because remember there was also this level that I had pointed out and had said that you could find that maybe, the sellers could end up giving some sort of resistance when the market comes in within that area. So when the market came in within this area right here, I actually moved my stop loss to break even within this region. So when the market came back in within there, unfortunately, I was stopped out and I was trying to time another entry during the US session. So I set this alert right there, but unfortunately the market just came in, just missed that entry. I was actually looking for the entry, by a whisker. And after that, the market completely went to the upside. So Unfortunately, I couldn't get back in on that trade. It's a real shame, but of course, it's part of trading. These things do end up happening. It's part of what we end up going through in trading, but we don't really end up fighting with the market. So you can see the trade right there. So first entry price came up somewhere within that region there, and the market pulled back in within here. Unfortunately, I ended up getting stopped out, and after that, couldn't get the next entry within this region right here, because I was also looking out to see whether I could even end up getting a tighter stop, definitely on a much way bigger lot size to actually end up going to the upside. But fortunately, the market did actually end up missing out or missing me and leaving without me. But it's okay. We don't fight with the markets. Today is another day. So we'll be watching out to see what opportunities we can get. So for this one, the plan is going to be still to look for buys. So you can see that the market has gone up higher, which is good. So we'll be waiting to see whether we can get those pullbacks coming in. So I can remove this alert. So let's see what happens when the market comes back in, hopefully within this region right here. So I'll definitely be reading to see what happens within there. If you can get a nice pullback coming back in within here, attempts of the sellers to maybe push the market to the downside end up being unsuccessful. Possibly could get some buying opportunities there, but also be watching out for these two other areas right here to really see what happens, because we could find the market also spiking back in within here, especially when the CPIs do end up coming out. We'll really be watching to see and watching keenly to see what does end up happening. So last but not least, we do have the Canadian dollar against the Japanese yen. So for this one, yesterday, we're trying to see whether we could get some buying opportunities, selling opportunities. And you can see the three regions right there that I had pointed out. So aggressive, conservative, semi-aggressive, conservative here. We've already looked at quite a number of the yens. So the plan is more or less the same. The sellers came down aggressively yesterday. We couldn't get the sellers showing up anywhere else yesterday. It's like they showed up, then after that, they completely disappeared. So for this one, we just moved the levels up just slightly higher to see what happens with that 1 hour seller right there at the top. If we can actually end up getting a move of that seller at the top, then that would be good. At least maybe we could try and get some proper selling opportunities there. We could get a replica of this move right here that happened yesterday. If that does end up happening and we get the sales there, definitely we'll be targeting down within this region, but also making sure that, I'll be managing trades within this area right here. And of course, if the market breaks above this region to the upside, then unfortunately, at that point in time, the selling opportunities will be off. So that's pretty much it in terms of all the currency pairs that we've discussed. Hopefully, you guys have taken note of that. And apologies, of course, for the internet hitches that are happening today. If anything is not clear, you guys can let me know. I can definitely repeat for you guys. So just let me know on the Q&A section. So we can move on to the indices and the commodities. There's been no change to those. Can't see that everything is exactly the same. So we'll start off with the NAS 100. Yesterday, the bias was to try and see whether we could get some buying opportunities. You can see the three regions right there that I had pointed out. In the morning, price was somewhere within here. Price came back in. I did point out that we wanted to see the market break and hold above this region. That happened much later on. So you can see that the buyers pushed the market to the upside. You can even see those wicks right there, signs of rejection. The sellers really attempted to push the market to the downside. They couldn't. Buyers showed up. Market held within here, and after that, you can see that the market did actually end up taking off to the upside quite well, moving even into today. So for today, these are the three areas we'll be watching out for. So hopefully, you guys can end up taking note of these three areas right here. Right now, the fact that the market is high up within that area, if you're thinking of looking for buying opportunities now, that's a horrible idea. I'd advise you not to, because you could find that this region right here, we're more or less coming back in within some sort of a major level. If you end up going up to the 4-hour time frame, you will see that the sellers have reacted off this region before. So you could easily find that the buyers now coming in within that area, we don't know what sort of reaction we could possibly end up getting, off these sellers within here. So you're better off waiting either for the market to actually break this region to the upside, and we can actually end up taking out those sellers who are sitting within there. If not, let's say we can get the market pulling back in within any of these two regions, or anywhere as close as possible, within those two areas, and we could get some proper buying opportunities within there. So the next one, this is the Dow Jones. So for this one yesterday, we're also watching out for buys. You can see the three regions right there that I had pointed out. In the morning, when we're looking at the charts, price was somewhere within this area right here. And if we are to zoom in, because I know the charts look a bit small within that area because of the move going up, but you can see that the market came back in within this region, attempted to break to the downside, couldn't, went to the upside, held above here, and you can see that at 3, price was actually sitting, on an area of support. And off that region there, even if you did attempt to buy stops here, you can see that the market did take off to the upside quite well. So for this one, for today, we're still going to be watching out to see whether we can get some buying opportunities. So right now, the market seems like it's breaking that region to the upside. Let's see if we can actually end up getting the market holding, above that area to the upside. If it does, then at least, we'll have to wait and see on the pullback what happens. If we get that hold to the upside within here, maybe even some attempts to break to the downside, then ideally we could look for some buying opportunities within that region. So watch out for that, but also watch out for these two regions right here. Remember, for the Dow Jones, or rather the commodities and the indices, they normally have a tendency to move a lot, especially during the US session. So, I mean, if things are a bit quiet during the London session, then just wait and see. You could find that the markets maybe could be setting themselves up, for those moves, to actually end up happening during the US session. So just make sure that you do watch out for that. So moving on into the second last thing that we always look at, which is silver. So for silver, yesterday, the bias was to try and see whether we could get some buying opportunities. You can see the 3 regions right there that I had pointed out. And of course, for as long as we're holding above there, the bias was to look for buying opportunities. Yesterday in the morning, price was somewhere within here. I did point out that we wanted to see the market break above that region, and we could possibly wait for the pullbacks to look for the buys. And you can see that there was also this region right here that, we're also expecting, in case the market came back in within that region, should have also been ready for that. And you can see that the market attempted to come to the downside, couldn't. Seems like there was some region of support somewhere within this area right here. The market pushed back to the upside, but you can't see that the market just took off from here. This one would have been a bit tricky to end up reading, but it's good to see that Brazil did end up getting some good buying opportunity somewhere within that region right there, but it wasn't very clear. But of course, I know Brazil is a real sniper on the charts. So for this one for today, these are the 3 areas that we're going to be watching out for. So hopefully you can end up taking note of them. Remember, for as long as we're holding above the red SNR, the bias should be to look for buying opportunities. Right now, we're within a seller's region. Let's see if we can get the market breaking above this region to the upside. If it does end up breaking and holding above there, then definitely you can look for more conservative buying opportunities. So hopefully you can take note of that, but also give these sellers the benefit of doubt. If we do get some pullbacks coming in, definitely be ready for those 2 regions right there. Could find the market back in there, within the times, especially during the US session, could find some good buying opportunities off those areas. So last but not least, we do have gold. So for this one yesterday, the path was to try and see whether we could get some buys. Can see the 3 regions right there that I had pointed out, more or less the same areas that we're going to be watching out for today. In the morning yesterday, price was here. I did point out that either we did want to see the market break and hold above here on the pullback to look for the buys, or you could find the market back in within this region. And if you end up looking at the time when the market was back in here, this was during the US session. So from around 4:30, you can see that price was back in within this region right here. We did end up at least attempting buys when the market was back here. Just needed to take the buy and manage, or possibly end up closing your trade somewhere within that area. So for this one, we're still going to be watching out for buys. Remember, the bias remains for as long as we're holding above the red SNR, means that the buyers are still in control. So we will be waiting to see what happens within either this area right here, if the market can end up coming back in, or if the market breaks above here to the upside, then we'll be waiting for the pullback to see what happens. And you can see alerts have already been set there by the team. There are some guys already waiting to see what happens within those areas, but we're definitely trading within some interesting times. Gold is at an all-time high. So if the market breaks above here, we'll have to wait and see how far this thing is going to end up going. But of course, if you do get the buys, as long as you do actually end up managing your trade, you can actually end up hanging on and trying to see how much more further the market could actually end up going. So watch out for that. Remember, the red SNR, also a possibility you could find the market coming back in all the way to within here before the buys do actually end up kicking in. But remember that in as much as you can actually end up looking for selling opportunities, on the commodities and the indices, it's perfectly fine. But just make sure that you're not overly ambitious. Like if you end up taking sales here and you're thinking that you can easily end up targeting way past this level all the way down to within these regions right here, whereby you're trying to possibly end up turning the market. The whole mentality of thinking that since the market is going up and the whole world is thinking buy, I think I'm going to take a sell. And you think that you're being very smart. I would advise you not to end up having that type of mentality, because for as long as we're going up, it shows that the buyers are really strong. So even if you end up taking sales, there could be some short-term sales. Generally, you can't see that the market is going to the upside. And like they always say, the trend is your friend, and always stick to the flow, and all these things that are usually said in the industry, they're actually true. So just make sure that you actually end up sticking at least to the buy side. If you get some sales, let them be quick. Don't really be too over ambitious with them. So I guess that's pretty much it in terms of everything. So I guess we can look at some things on the Q&A. So I see Alan Ronald there, you're asking me to repeat a UD card. So for this one, we're basically trying to see whether we can get some buying opportunities on this one. So these are the 3 areas that we'll be watching out for. Don't look for the buys right now. You'll not really get some proper risk to reward. Even if you try squeeze yourself in just to get this buy coming up till here, you're better off waiting to see if you can get the market breaking above here to the upside. On the pullback, maybe you could look for some buying opportunities somewhere within here on the pullback, or possibly giving these sellers the benefit of doubt. You could find the market back in here, maybe even at 430, and you could find like a proper buy could happen off there, or maybe somewhere within here. So just a bit of patience is advised on that one. And I can see that you're also adding US 30. So for this one, basically watching out for buying opportunities. Right now, the market is breaking to the upside, but don't look for buys right now, because you could end up taking the buy there, some sort of a breakout trade, and definitely lots of guys are looking for those trades, but it's better to wait for the pullback back in within this region, just to get the confirmation that the market has actually broken above this region to the upside. So just be a bit patient on this one. Even if the market continues to rally up high, don't feel FOMO, let it go. The market could easily end up pulling back in. Take the trades that, you can ideally end up reading, especially on the pullbacks. That will give you a much better time on the charts. So I hope that sorts you out, Alan. So I see Anke, good to see you here. You're saying, hi, John, given the correlation between CAD and oil, does CAD news affect oil and vice versa? Not really. What you'll find is oil news will end up affecting CAD, but Canadian dollar news events, I don't think will really end up affecting oil that much. So it's one way based on what we've seen. It actually ends up working out one way. So it's the oil news events that actually end up affecting the CADs. The Canadian news events affecting oil, not really that much. I don't really think we really saw that, especially even during the days when we used to trade oil a lot. So it's one way. So I hope that that ends up sorting you out. But that's an interesting question from Annie K right there. So I'm not seeing any more questions, which is perfectly fine. We also need to get ready to jump in onto the charts. So remember, today we do have CPIs for the euro at 12 and for the Canadian dollar at 3. So just make sure you watch out for those times. But of course, in case the bias for the euros does end up shifting, then we'll definitely let you guys know on the Telegram channel. So just make sure that you're there. The link should be there on the chat box in case you've not joined. For the guys joining on the socials, on YouTube, the link should be in the link that has all our resources. So you should find that there on the tab.bio/Afriforex link. You should find it there. So I guess that's pretty much it from me and from us. Apologies for the hitches that we've had today. Technology can't fail, but at least we've gotten all the way till the very end of the session. In case anything wasn't clear, also feel free to rewatch this webinar on our social, on YouTube more specifically. And of course, when you're there, also remember to give us a like and a subscribe. That will definitely end up helping us and helping our channel. So I guess we'll see you guys tomorrow. And as always, may the pips be with you. If you get any trades, feel free to send them in to us, whether good or bad. We'll celebrate your wins with you, and we'll also help you out in case your trades are not that good. So may the pips be with you, and God bless. Bye for now. Cheers, guys.